Everyone, welcome to this presentation. Today we're going to look at the passive voice, and in particular the passive voice in the simple past, so the past passive voice. Okay, I'm going to do a quick review of the passive voice. What is it? Why is it? Why do we use it? Why is it necessary? And then we'll look at the past passive voice and then do an activity. So, passive voice review. Why do we use the passive voice? So in English, we have the active voice and the passive voice. The active voice is the most commonly used, because the emphasis is on the subject of the sentence. So John, the subject, eats pizza every Monday. Okay, so the subject, John, the verb or the action, and pizza, the object, every Monday. And there he is, John eating his pizza every Monday. So the emphasis is on John, the subject. This is the active voice. If we do the passive voice, the emphasis changes. We put the emphasis on the pizza and the action, so the object, the pizza, and the action, eating, the verb, not the subject, so not John. So the verb changes from active, eats, to passive, which is the verb to be, is or are, with the past participle. For eat is eaten. And if we want to talk about John, the subject, we have to use by. So pizza is eaten by John every Monday. And here we've got the emphasis on the pizza, not on John. So pizza is eaten by John every Monday. If it was pizzas, more than one pizza, the pizzas are eaten by John every Monday. So this is the difference between active voice, John eats pizzas every Monday, and passive voice, pizza is eaten by John every Monday, with this change of emphasis. So, why do we use the passive voice? We use the passive voice when we want to emphasize the action. So, in the last example was the eating pizza. So the verb, the action, and the object, rather than the subject. So for example, in the active voice, millions of people watch the Harry Potter films. In the passive voice, we're focusing on the Harry Potter films. The Harry Potter films are watched by millions of people. Because in this sentence, the most important part, the most relevant part are the Harry Potter films. They're the focus of the sentence. So it makes sense to use the passive voice so we can emphasize the Harry Potter films are watched by millions of people. So to be, is or are, and past participle. Sometimes when the subject is not important, we don't have to mention it. You can see I've got the subjects here already. I forgot to take them off. So for example, football is played in every country in the world. The subject is people, but it's obvious, right? We don't have to say that people play football. So football is played by people in every country in the world. So we can avoid using the subject. Football is played in every country in the world. 100 Years of Solitude is read all over the world by people, obviously. Colombia is known for its great coffee. Yeah? Obviously, it's people who know that Colombia has great coffee, but we don't need to mention it because it's obvious and it's not important. The important thing is Colombia in this sense. So, in these cases, we don't even need to use by and the subject. We just say, Colombia is known for its great coffee. Football is played in every country. Okay, so the past passive voice, focus of today. The examples you've seen are present passive. So past passive is the same concept, but when we're talking about things or events in the past, and we want to use the passive voice. So here's an example of the active voice. Galatasaray Football Club bought Falcao. But if we want to focus, emphasize Falcao, we change it to the passive voice. Falcao was bought by Galatasaray. So this is past passive. Past simple of to be. So instead of is or are, is was or were. In this case is was because it's Falcao, singular. And past participle. Bought is the past participle of to buy. Another example. Gabriel Garcia Marquez published 100 Years of Solitude in 1967. This is active voice. But if we want to focus on 100 Years of Solitude, we change it to the passive. 100 Years of Solitude was published in 1967. Okay, so obviously for the passive voice, past participles are very important. So normally, regular past participles, the base form of the verb plus ed, like play, played, listen, listened, watch, watched. So the regular ones, we just add ed. There's quite a few irregular ones. The most common verbs tend to be irregular. So here's some of the past participles of the most regular verbs. We already saw with to buy and bought. Here we've got as well do, done, drink, drunk. So we could say Colombian coffee is drunk all over the world. Eat, eaten. Arepas are eaten in Colombia. Go, gone, have, had, know, known. We saw that Colombian coffee is known all over the world. It's famous. Make, made, say, said. See, seen. It's a bit like watched. Take, taken. Write, written. Yeah? So, Gabriel Garcia Marquez wrote 100 Years of Solitude. Active voice. Past passive voice. 100 Years of Solitude was written by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Okay, so let's finish with the activity. Okay, so there's going to be some sentences and I want you to change them from the active voice to the passive voice. And they're all in the past. So past, passive voice. An example like this. Millions of people watched the World Cup final. Active voice. Past, active voice. Change it to past, passive voice. We swap it round. The World Cup final was watched by millions of people. Okay, so there's 8 sentences. You're changing them from the active voice to the passive voice in the past tense. Okay, you've got 10 minutes to do this activity. So pause the video and off you go with the activity. Okay, so I hope you found the activity easy enough, not too hard. Let's look at the solutions. So remember, we saw this example before. Millions of people watched the World Cup final. The World Cup final was watched by millions of people. So the first one, we have Parasite won the Oscar for Best Picture. The Oscar for Best Picture was won by Parasite. Bolivar liberated Colombia in 1810. Colombia was liberated by Bolivar in 1810. Again, just swapping them round and using the passive voice. The people of the US elected Obama in 2007. Obama was elected in 2007 by the people of the US. Here you can see it's not really important to use this because it's obvious who elected Obama. It was the people of the US. So we can almost not use this part. Just Obama was elected in 2007 because the subject, the people of the US, is not necessary. It's kind of obvious. The National Federation of Coffee Growers founded Juan Valdez in 2002. Again, this is a similar example. We don't really need to say that the National Federation of Coffee Growers founded. You can say Juan Valdez was founded in 2002. And that's it. That's the most important information. France won the 2018 World Cup. The 2018 World Cup was won by France. In the 20th century, war devastated many countries. Change it to the passive voice. Many countries were devastated. This is were and not was because we have countries in plural. Were devastated by war in the 20th century. Or this in the 20th century could be at the start. In the 20th century, many countries were devastated by war. Coronavirus infected many people. Many people were infected, people's plural, were infected by coronavirus. And the last one, farmers harvested the bananas 2 months ago. So change it around. The bananas were harvested 2 months ago. Again, number 8 is a bit like 3 and 4 because it's kind of obvious that the farmers harvested the bananas. We don't really need to mention it because the focus, the most important part, we're talking about the bananas. And it's kind of obvious that it was the farmers who harvested them. So we can even leave this part out. So the bananas were harvested 2 months ago, or the bananas were harvested by farmers 2 months ago. Okay, well done everyone for that activity. I hope it's a bit clearer now why we use the passive voice and how we use the past passive voice when talking about events in the past. So thank you for listening and have a great day.